There was a whisper at first, and it concluded with a courtroom gasp that went viral on all American hip-hop blogs and gossip websites. No one anticipated Camron entering that courtroom, much less bringing evidence with him. Genuine, unadulterated, unrefined, and legally explosive. There was already a lot of tension in the courtroom. Sitting rigidly in a gray designer suit, Jim Jones made an effort to maintain his cool. Sitting next to him, wearing a black dress and shades, Chrissy Lampkin gripped her high-end purse as if it were the final remnant of her fame. However, nothing at all could have prepared them for what Camron brought. With a cool fire in his voice, Cam stood up and said, "Your Honor, I have a few things to add to the record." The courtroom. The magistrate bent forward. Jim's attorney attempted to cut him off. It's too late. Straight to the bailiff, Camron slid a USB drive over the table. Without blinking, he said, "Play track 3. Only that one." The sound system squealed. Then the room was filled with Chrissy's voice. "Jim's opinion is irrelevant to me. He is still unaware of the call I placed to Cam. Even though I made a mistake that night, I never told anyone the truth. Not even Jimmy." A pin drop could be heard. Jim Jones appeared to have been hit by a brick of treachery. His expression was a mix of bewilderment, anger, and grief. Chrissy quickly put her palm to her mouth. The courtroom blew up. Shocks, whispers. Reporters are typing furiously, clicking cameras. The gavel was hammered by the judge. "Commence!" However, there was no command. Because this was a deadly disclosure rather than merely a leak. Camron was never expected to be involved in the legal case. It was a closed-door, private civil hearing about real estate issues and historical debts related to Chrissy and Jones's previous real estate transactions. However, rumors that Chrissy was concealing something had already surfaced. Conspiracy theories were rife on social media. Why has Chrissy been acting so tense lately? Why did Jim appear tense during his most recent video shoot? Why did Camron write, "Loyalty ain't what it used to be," in that mysterious Instagram story last week? Fans initially believed it to be just another wave of Dipset drama. However, it went beyond that. Camron had been sitting behind the scenes with a collection of calls that had been recorded, some of which were from years ago. Private conversations. Remorse at the end of the night. Chrissy never imagined these messages would ever be seen. So far. "That tape is fake, Your Honor," Chrissy's attorney yelled. Camron chuckled. "I have timestamps. I received metadata." She acknowledges. The judge's eyebrow went up. Chrissy had shaking hands. Jim looked at it, but with pain. He said, "You told me it was nothing." She began to cry as she stated, "You vowed you and Cam never—" "Jimmy, I didn't know he'd keep that." There was more for Camron to do. He presented screenshots of 2016 texts that he and Chrissy exchanged. One message was bolded and stood out. "The only person who has ever truly understood me is you. Jimmy doesn't notice and doesn't inquire. You did it every time." The media went crazy. Like vultures around a new controversy, TMZ vans, shade room representatives, and hip-hop bloggers flocked to the steps. Whenever someone went outdoors, reporters pushed microphones at them. "Why now, Cam? Are you attempting to destroy Jim's life, Cam? Cam, I say, did you really cheat?" Jim remained silent. Ignoring every query, he plowed through the mob with a stony visage. "However, Camron?" He came to a halt, removed his sunglasses, turned to face the cameras, then uttered the following 5 words. "Loyalty isn't a team effort." Boom, mic drop. Twitter took off. The hashtag #StubbornCamVsChrissy became popular in 4 minutes. Actually presented the receipts to the judge. "Chrissy's dodgy, and I knew it. Jim Jones is worthy of better." This deception is outrageous. This is real and messier than a Love and Hip Hop finale. Why do guys like Jimmy always play with real ones? Cam has always been cunning. Ever this? Legendary mayhem. In only a few seconds, Clubhouse rooms, TikToks, and Instagram reels came to life. People were dissecting Chrissy's tone and searching for truth in her pauses as they examined the leaked footage. The internet became a courthouse unto itself. No one was secure within that digital conflagration. Fans were unaware at the time that was only the beginning. Camron's proof wasn't a mere gimmick. Sources close to the case claim that he turned in the tapes to shield himself from being drawn into allegations of financial misconduct involving Chrissy's transactions. And in the middle, Chrissy allegedly discusses something far worse in a second covert phone call. "If ever gets out, I'm done. Dipset would never talk to me again, and Jimmy would abandon me." That recording? Sealed. However, court insiders say it's next. Chrissy hesitated to meet Jim's gaze as the courtroom cleared for a break. She sat quietly with her lips pushed together, shaking a little as though everything in her world were collapsing right then and there. Jim didn't say anything, either, but the way he passed her without even looking spoke more than words could. Camron left quickly. He left with his squad after the harm was done to the reporters and supporters. He was aware of his actions. He had no desire for praise. He was clearly making his point. Officials from the court rushed inside. The judge ordered all of the evidence to be reviewed. To seal the other cassettes, Jim's attorney submitted an urgent motion. However, the leak had occurred, and enough had been heard for the public to start speculating. That evening, Chrissy was in the news once more, but this time for betrayal rather than fashion or a reality TV comeback. Her name was all over the place. Cam's was too. Audio snippets went viral. In reenactments, TikTok artists lip-synced Chrissy's voice. Body language analyses of Jim's response were shared on YouTube. Even famous people began to comment. Behind closed doors, Dipset affiliates were reportedly divided. One verified rapper tweeted, "Cam petty as hell, but that was a power move. Jimmy should have seen it coming." Another reality TV star tweeted, "Chrissy has always been whispering for years." While some praised Cam's audacity, others referred to it as low and personal. There were rumors that Jim was thinking of officially separating from Chrissy and from everything that had to do with Dipset. And still, the largest bomb had not yet detonated. The second recording, which purportedly disclosed Chrissy's most significant secret, had not been played yet. But according to court sources, it's more harmful than anything that has been made public thus far. It goes beyond infidelity. Money, deception, and a hidden child connected to a 10-year-old controversy are all at play. What about Camron? The master copy is still in his possession, because the conflict is just getting started. The following morning, Jim Jones was nowhere to be found. One seat at the defense table was unoccupied, despite the courthouse being full once more with reporters, attorneys, observers, and even fans attempting to enter covertly. Hi. But there was Chrissy. With 2 attendants at her sides, she arrived, late, dressed all in black, and her countenance was icy. No cosmetics, no grin, nothing but quiet. It was a different room. Heavier. As if everyone was aware of the change. What had begun as a civil matter now teetered on the brink of complete public disintegration. With eyes darting to the entrance, every few seconds, Chrissy sat down and mumbled something to her lawyer, who nodded firmly. Jim is still nowhere to be found. However, Camron? He had already arrived. Front row, be calm, informal, legs crossed, put on your hood. He didn't have to say anything because his very presence shouted that he wasn't finished. The court convened. After searching the bench for Jim, the judge asked the room if the defendant was there. Chrissy's attorney stood up and asked for a postponement. "Is going through an emotional health crisis," he stated bluntly. "He is not going to be here today." There was silence, whispers. A gasp could be heard from someone in the rear. The judge gave one nod. "We use what we have." The court suddenly resumed, but without Jim. However, the actual storm was already roaring outside the courthouse. Cam's leak quickly spread over the internet, not only on blogs and hip-hop websites, but also in mainstream media. CNN made a passing reference to it. A complete timeline was run by Complex. A vintage video of Chrissy and Jim's proposal was even uploaded by Wendy Williams, who said, "Was it ever real?" Instagram turned into a battlefield. Supporters took sides. While some called Cam petty, others defended Chrissy. A confirmed producer who claimed to have worked on Love and Hip Hop posted a now-deleted tweet that caught everyone's attention. "You guys only saw 10% of what really went down between Chrissy, Jim, and Cam. That triangle is much more complex." Additionally, some names haven't even been mentioned yet. People began to make connections. Chrissy's previous interviews were being circulated in screenshot form, particularly one in which she chuckled and remarked, "Cam always had a soft spot for me, even when he didn't want to admit it." Theories erupted in Reddit forums. According to some, Camron fell in love with Chrissy before Jim. Others claimed that Chrissy held a grudge against both men. But which gossip is the loudest? That there may be illegal activity on the second recording, the one Cam alluded to. By midday, bloggers were already publishing headlines such as, "Is there proof Camron committed fraud against Chrissy?" After Chrissy's confession, Jim Jones disappears. Is Dipset finished? Dipset finished? Things were rapidly falling apart back in court. In an attempt to change the subject, Chrissy's counsel claimed emotional distress, accused Cam of defamation, and even asked that all of the leaked material be removed from the evidence because it was intentional emotional sabotage. However, it wasn't functioning. With a direct and low voice, the judge leaned in. "Ms., these aren't music videos, Lampkin. This is a legal court. Verified material remains in place." Chrissy's entire body went rigid. Then there was another twist. A sealed envelope bearing the label Exhibit E was brought in by the bailiff, F. It's the second recording. Chrissy's attorney immediately objected. "We haven't gone over that," the judge interrupted. "You have more than 24 hours. I acknowledge it." The file was in the queue. The courtroom tilted toward them. Camron gazed directly ahead. Then it began to play. Chrissy's voice, lower this time, unsteady. "I'll be held accountable if something happens with that money. Jimmy is unable to know. Not right now. Not in light of the baby's recent news. I'm not even sure what he'll do if it ever surfaces that it's not his." There was complete silence in the courtroom. Someone in the back was whispering, "Oh my God." The judge immediately halted the recording. "The court will immediately go into recess." Reporters sprang from their chairs. The phones were out already. One reporter ran to the door. Now, this was more than simply a scandal. It was possible criminal exposure, deception. There is paternity, misrepresentation of identity. Chrissy jolted to her feet and knocked over her chair. She was staring at Cam with wide eyes. "You said you'd never..." Camron remained unflinching. "I promised to protect your secrets." Her lawyer pulled her back as she pushed forward, saying, "Until you tried to ruin me." Security took over. The judge had left already. There was mayhem in the room. Twitter exploded outside once more. Was it true what Chrissy said about the baby not being his? His? Second recording? Oh no, this is deeper than we initially believed, it denied. It destroyed Jim and Chrissy in court. Court is crazy. You all know why Jimmy vanishes again. Right now, it's bringing excitement to the Maury plus Suge Knight plus VH1 finale. In the midst of it all, one video, with Chrissy turning to Cam in court and yelling, "You promised me," went viral the most, garnering 6 million views in only 2 hours. The memes began. There are more layers to Chrissy's secrets than a Drake album. Camron is releasing tapes as if they were released in 2002. Jim Jones is hurling his phone at the wall somewhere. However, it wasn't amusing to Cam. According to others close to him, he felt compelled to act, despite being emotionally exhausted. He was reluctant to go public. Jim wasn't someone he wanted dragged. However, behind the scenes, Chrissy had been attempting to trash Cam's reputation in court documents, freeze assets, and portray him as unstable. This kind of self-defense. Cam was supposedly approached by producers of Love and Hip Hop who offered him a deal on an exclusive one-on-one show. He refused. The damage was already done. The truth was already known to the globe. Jim, too, found. He was reportedly spotted at a hotel close to the Hudson, by themselves. Put on a hoodie, no entourage, only strolling along the water's edge. He simply nodded and turned to go when admirers walked up to him. He appeared to have not slept, according to a fan's message. He had left. Not just physically, as if his thoughts were elsewhere. Chrissy, meanwhile, stopped talking on the internet. Don't tweet. No stories on Instagram. Nothing. Everyone understood, however, that was not the end. Not even close. Due to the fact that the next hearing was set for 2 days later. and there was a rumor there was one more card for Camron to play. It felt colder than ever in the corridor outside the courthouse. Chrissy was slumped forward on the bench, her hands trembling in her lap. Although her eyes were red, she was no longer crying. She apparently needed to be sedated at the hotel where her team was staying because she had sobbed so much the previous evening. She appeared hollow now, worn out, as if her whole public persona had been completely destroyed in a single day. This time, Camron arrived in silence. Not a crowd. Don't snicker. Sharp eyes and a straight face. He entered with his attorney after giving the officers at the door a nod. Shackles, not a flash. He was a man who was eager to put something back together after it had been damaged for too long. However, no one, not even the court, anticipated Jim Jones's appearance. The rear doors opened. Shocks. Some phones rang. And there he was, hoodie in gray sweatpants, and wearing sunglasses. Unreadable face. He didn't behave like a man who was looking for justice. He exuded a sense of having already lost everything. He avoided glancing at Chrissy. Not once. He crossed his arms and sat down quietly next to his attorney. The room became silent. The session was called into order by the judge. Then everything was different. Camron's attorney was the first to rise. "With your consent, Your Honor, we would like to present our last piece of evidence." The judge gave a slow nod. "Go ahead." They handed over a flash drive. Cam didn't even raise his head. "Open the closure folder." The screen wavered. The video file started. Nobody made a move. Chrissy was captured on camera in a recording that was made nearly a decade earlier. She was pacing what appeared to be a hotel room. She was talking on the phone. Weeping. With tears in her eyes, she continued, "I didn't mean to hurt him. I cherished both of them. I found solace in Jimmy. However, Cam. The fire was Cam. Additionally, attempting to hold both flames burned me." There was a startled stillness in the room. Chrissy was seen off camera conversing with a male in the following footage. Fans would eventually surmise that the distorted voice belonged to a high-level music executive. "You don't get it," Chrissy continued, "because Jim will break if he discovers the baby isn't his. What about Dipset? It will collapse. They won't make it through it. I made a decision. I said a falsehood. I was forced to." Chrissy got to her feet quickly. "That isn't real," she yelled. "That has been edited. That's not what I said. A motion." For order was made by the judge. Jim didn't recoil. He simply slowly tilted his head in Chrissy's direction. The way his jaw tightened spoke volumes, even if his shades were still on. "He said that you had deceived him for a decade. The one thing that I believe to be pure." Chrissy stepped in his direction and begged, "No, Jimmy. I didn't mean to do you any harm." "You did." When he said that final word, his voice broke. "You caused me pain. I was humiliated by you. And because you caused a wound, you allowed him to carry the knife." She stopped. Once more, the courtroom became hushed. Instead of gloating, Camron looked skyward, simply observing. Then Jim got up. "I am withdrawing all petitions for protection, Your Honor. I will no longer protect her. Let the truth be known. Let her handle it." He turned to walk away, but he was halted by the judge. "Mr. Jones, are you also aware that Ms. Lampkin is facing a civil lawsuit for fraud and financial deception under your signature?" Jim gave a slow nod. "Allow it to occur." Behind her, Chrissy fell on the bench. Her attorney was kneeling next to her, desperately whispering. She didn't answer. She was limp all throughout. A few moments later, the court adjourned. There was mayhem outside. Reporters are yelling, flashing cameras. "We love you, Jim," said one fan. He didn't respond. He closed the door after walking directly to the black SUV that was waiting for him. It took Chrissy 10 minutes to emerge. With a hood drawn over her head, security protected her, trembling as she whispered, "Please stop," to the media. However, the internet continued to grow. Hours later, excerpts, responses, and breakdowns of the entire film that Cam had provided were leaked. "This is worse than we thought," a YouTuber commented, goes beyond simple infidelity, is betrayal on an identity level. "This makes love and hip-hop look like Sesame Street," another tweeter said. "This disaster in real life is cruel." Once more, celebs voiced their opinions. "I told you all years ago, everything you thought you knew about them was surface level," a retired Dipset producer wrote on social media. This war wasn't started by Cam. He simply put an end to it. Fans became divided into groups. Cam was accused by others of letting everything out. He was hailed as a hero by others for standing on truth. But the majority? The majority were simply in disbelief that such a famous and widely known love tale had devolved into the kind of treachery that destroys more than just hearts. It destroys legacies. A fan account with more than 1 million followers shared one of the most popular postings. It displayed photos side by side. A screenshot of Chrissy in court with her face buried in her hands is shown on the right, while a youthful Jim and Chrissy from the early 2000s are seen on the left, grinning at a Dipset BBQ. "From hood royalty to public ruin" is the caption. Because secrets are never truly hidden. Camron, meanwhile, went radio silent and exited the courthouse. Don't tweet. No interviews. The following day, there was only one post. Closure comes at a cost, along with a black screen and white lettering on Instagram stories. Peace, however, is invaluable. In less than 10 minutes, it went viral. Jim's group did not issue a statement. However, according to others close to him, he was officially done with Chrissy on a personal and financial level. Additionally, he was thinking about completely leaving the public eye. Of the paternity rumors? Not yet given a name. Not yet confirmed. However, according to sources, a discrete DNA test had already been scheduled, and the findings would not be made public until criminal charges were brought in the fraud case. What about Chrissy? There was a lockdown on her team. PR representatives rushed to steer the conversation. Draft statements were never made public. There were rumors of some brand deals being canceled. Offers for reality TV vanished in a day. "At this time, we have no regarding the legal matters involving past cast members," said VH1 in a chilly, bland statement. A new hashtag became popular in the weeks that followed. Fans of Chasi Chark, the Chrissy fallout, shared lessons on it. Stories of heartbreak, tales of treachery. A few pulled her. Others felt the same way. However, she had turned into a warning story. What about Dipset? Changed forever. An era is over. Not with cheers, but with stillness. There is more to this tale than treachery. It's about how one falsehood may blow up and destroy everything in its path if it's buried deep and allowed to rot. Nothing was safe when reality hit hard. Not even the friendships that created empires, or the love we believed would last forever. Camron didn't arrive to cause harm. He came to recover. However, he exposed the weaknesses in everyone else's defenses in the process. If you were shaken by this, realize that this is just the beginning. Emotional warfare, power struggles, and secrets abound in these courtrooms. What about next week? The consequences worsen. If you want the unvarnished truth behind the headlines, don't forget to subscribe. To ensure you don't miss any drama, turn on alerts. If you value truth over allegiance, please like this video and leave a comment with which side you support. Camron, Jim, or Chrissy? Because in the realm of celebrity, legacy, and failed love, only the brave make it out alive.